All right, today we're diving into one of the most bizarre, grotesque, and honestly just unbelievable events in all of history. It's called the Cadaver Synod. And yeah, it's a story of political revenge so extreme it literally reached beyond the grave.
I want you to just picture this for a second. The year is 897 AD. We're in the Great Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome. There's a formal trial going on, but the defendant, dressed in full papal robes, isn't silent because he's defiant. He's silent because he's a 9-month-old corpse. This was the actual trial of the deceased Pope Formosus.
It's a wild question, isn't it? I mean, how does this even happen? Well, the answer pulls back the curtain on a dark and turbulent world of corruption, insane power plays, and political ambition that had totally consumed the medieval papacy. So let's unravel exactly how we got here.
To understand the trial, you first have to understand the city where it all went down. 9th century Rome. And let me tell you, this was not a city of saints and scholars. It was a brutal political arena where the papacy was the ultimate prize.
Historians actually call this era the pornocracy, and they're not exaggerating. The papacy had become a political tool. Being pope meant controlling territory, commanding armies, and handling unbelievable amounts of wealth. So you had these noble families fighting, bribing, and even murdering each other to get their guy on St. Peter's throne.
And this timeline just shows you the sheer instability of it all. See, when the great Carolingian Empire collapsed, it left this huge power vacuum in Italy. Popes were being made and unmade with breathtaking speed, often deposed, thrown in prison, or just straight up murdered by rival factions. It was absolute chaos.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the man at the center of our story, Pope Formosus. He was a pretty savvy political operator who had to figure out how to survive in this incredibly dangerous world.
Formosus was no stranger to controversy, that's for sure. He was competent, ambitious, a really successful diplomat, but he also made some powerful enemies along the way. He was even excommunicated at one point for supposedly plotting to seize the papacy. But, in this era, fortunes changed fast. He was eventually restored and then elected pope at the ripe old age of 75.
And this is where Formosus made his one fateful mistake. The most powerful family in Rome, the House of Spoleto, wanted the prestigious title of Holy Roman Emperor for themselves. But Formosus, probably fearing they'd become too powerful, backed their rival, Arnulf of Carinthia, and crowned him emperor instead. This was a direct betrayal, an act the Spoleto family would never, ever forget.
Just a few months after crowning Arnulf, Formosus dies. This was the perfect opportunity for his enemies. The Spoleto family wasted no time. They stormed back into Rome, took control, and installed their own man, Stephen VI, as the new pope. And what was their first order of business? Revenge.
This right here peels back the curtain on the trial's real motive. I mean, look at the official charges. They were all technicalities focused on obscure points of church law. But the real reason, the one everyone there understood, was pure political vengeance. This was about destroying the legacy of the man who had dared to cross the Spoleto family. The trial itself was a piece of truly macabre theater. First, they dug up his 9-month-old corpse. Then, they dressed its decomposing form in full papal robes and propped it up on a throne to face his accusers. Pope Stephen VI himself prosecuted, screaming accusations directly at the corpse. And get this, they appointed a young deacon to stand beside the body and voice the defense for the dead man. The verdict, of course, was a foregone conclusion.
The punishment was designed for maximum humiliation. Formosus was declared an illegitimate anti-pope. All his official acts were canceled, just like that. Then, they physically cut the 3 fingers he used for blessings from his right hand, stripped the body of its robes, and eventually had it dug up again just so they could throw it into the Tiber River. It was a vicious attempt to completely erase him from existence.
But this whole spectacle, it was a step too far. Even for the hardened citizens of medieval Rome, who were used to violence and corruption, putting a dead man on trial was a sacrilege. It violated every single taboo about respect for the dead.
And this was the turning point. Shortly after the synod, an earthquake struck Rome, damaging the very basilica where the trial had been held. For the people, this was a clear sign from God, a sign of divine fury at what Pope Stephen had done. And public opinion shifted really fast from fear to pure outrage.
The backlash was swift, and it was brutal. Just a few months after the trial, a popular uprising exploded in Rome. Stephen VI was captured, thrown in prison, and soon after, strangled to death. And in this final act of incredible poetic justice, the people of Rome reportedly fished Formosus's body out of the river and reburied it with full honors in St. Peter's Basilica.
Now, you might think the story ends there, but the death of Stephen VI didn't solve the problem he created. No way. The Cadaver Synod unleashed a wave of chaos that would destabilize the church for decades to come.
Just look at this number. In the 7 years that followed the synod, there were 9 different popes. 9! That just goes to show you the profound crisis the trial created. Was Formosus a legitimate pope or not? The answer to that question determined the legitimacy of countless priests and bishops that he had ordained.
And the popes themselves couldn't agree. One pope would come in and annul the Cadaver Synod's verdict. Then the next guy, like the infamous Sergius III, would come in and reinstate it all over again. The legal status of Formosus and everyone he'd ever ordained just flipped back and forth, creating a total bureaucratic nightmare.
So, in the end, the Cadaver Synod left these deep, lasting scars. It became the ultimate symbol of papal corruption. It raised fundamental questions about the limits of a pope's power that would echo for centuries. And for reformers, this single, grotesque event was Exhibit A for why the church desperately needed to be saved from itself.
And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The Cadaver Synod is so much more than just a bizarre historical footnote. It's a really chilling example of what happens when a sacred institution becomes just another weapon for political power, and when justice gets twisted into a spectacle of vengeance so total that not even death can escape it.